Let me ask you something. If every single time you opened up, you felt analyzed, corrected, or quietly evaluated, would you keep opening up or would you shut it down? Here's the hard question for today. If he feels judged, even subtly, why would he risk vulnerability? Because vulnerability is expensive and no one invests where they feel unsafe. Most people don't avoid vulnerability because they're stubborn. They avoid it because it feels dangerous, especially for men who grew up in homes where emotions weren't welcome, weakness was punished, or mistakes were magnified. If vulnerability once led to shame, his nervous system learned, do not go there. Now, I personally earned a PhD in avoidance. I can dodge a vulnerable conversation like it's the middle of school dodgeball. So when you say, I just want you to open up, what he may hear is, I'm about to be evaluated. And you guys, evaluation feels like threat. Now, here's where this gets uncomfortable. Judgment isn't always eye rolling or harsh criticism. Sometimes it sounds like, why didn't you just say that sooner? That doesn't make any sense. You shouldn't feel that way. Heavy sighs, correcting details, jumping into problem solving mode. You may think you're helping, and he may feel exposed. Honestly, I used to think I was being helpful, but apparently my helpful tone has the same effect as a surprise IRS audit. There's a big difference between I'm trying to understand you and I'm trying to assess you. One builds safety, the other builds armor. So if he already carries shame about his past, if he already feels like he should be over it, if he already believes that something is wrong with him, then the smallest hint of judgment confirms his worst fear. And when shame gets activated, the body does one of three things: fight, flight, or freeze. Withdraw is freeze. Silence is protection, not rejection, but protection. Trust me, I've played emotional freeze tag more times than I care to admit. And spoiler alert, nobody wins that game. When he shares something small, do you hold it gently? Or do you expand it into a bigger conversation about his childhood, his patterns, and what he needs to work on? When he struggles, do you stay steady? Or does your anxiety spike and push him for more? Because if vulnerability leads to pressure, he'll stop offering it. You cannot analyze someone into vulnerability. You create safety first. And safety sounds like this. Thank you for telling me. That makes sense. I'm glad you shared that with me. And finally, I'm not going anywhere. No fixing, no diagnosing, no correcting, just presence. And when someone feels fully known without being shamed, that that is when vulnerability grows. If he feels judged, even unintentionally, he won't risk going deeper. Not because he doesn't love you, but because his nervous system doesn't feel safe. So ask yourself, am I creating a courtroom or a refugee? Because vulnerability only grows up in refuge. If he feels judged, even unintentionally, he won't risk going deeper. Not because he doesn't love you, but because his nervous system doesn't feel safe. So ask yourself, am I creating a courtroom or a refuge? Because vulnerability only grows in refuge. Believe me, I used to think I could audit my way into closeness, but it turns out nobody wants a relationship with a walking performance review. And if you're listening to this and thinking, okay, this is us, he shuts down and then I push and we both end up feeling misunderstood. I want you to get clarity on what dynamic is actually running your relationship. I created a free quiz. It's called 9 Patterns Keeping You Apart. Which one is running your relationship? Because most couples aren't broken, They're just stuck in patterns they don't recognize. And when you name the pattern, you stop reacting blindly. You start responding intentionally. And it's totally free and takes just a few minutes. It just might give you language for something you've felt for years. So click the link below and take the quiz. You don't have to keep guessing.